Hey team, it's Dom, and we are back with part three of our coverage of our team's Auckland Championships performance. And in this part, we are going to cover our Open Men's team. Um, so, with our Open Men's team, most of them are going to be at least 1 year into their powerlifting career. So, 4+ competitions and a lot of the goals will be more competitive for depending on abilities, obviously. But seeing as this is Auckland champs, the abilities are graded anyways, which means for this level of competition, it'll be competitive for some of these guys, if not most of these guys. Again, in the last video towards the end, I really piled on thanks to a lot of the other clubs and coaches that are developing a lot of the novice intermediate lifters in the Auckland scene, mainly because of the experience that it provides my guys when it comes to competition. Again, like these would be the benefits of it, like being able to experience close competition with people of similar of your ability. So again, most of my guys here in the open team are 4+ competitions under their belt, at least 1 year, except for one person, Josiah, which will be his first competition. But we'll talk about him in a bit. But we'll start off firstly with Samesh. Um, so with Samesh, this is his coming into his second year of competing. Um, I remember when Samesh first came to us. So he's actually the brother of Kavi, who's like a long time member of us. Like when Samesh first came to us, I think he'd been training like a normal gym training for maybe a couple of years, I believe, and then playing a lot of sports his whole life in athletics. So it's not like he wasn't an athlete when he first came to us, but when he first came to us, he was literally falling over with like 190 squat. He started the season off last year with Auckland champs and starts off he started off his powerlifting career last year with Auckland champs and the second season obviously with Auckland champs as well. So again, appropriate level of competition in terms of grading exposures and experience to the right level of competition for him. Again, like when he first came to us, he was literally falling over with 190 back squat. You saw him there open up with 145. Um, also, ironically, literally almost falling over with 145. It shouldn't have moved that way. Um, Heading into this competition, a lot of what we were wanting to establish was literally getting a 700 total, which will be nationally competitive, at least from a podium standpoint, in the 83 Open class here in New Zealand. Um, Basically, we wanted to establish a 700, which meant around about 265 squat for him, 260. With the way that he opened up with his 245 there, he pretty much, that was pretty much a write off. Like 265 was pretty much a write off. So I wanted to pace him a little bit here. 252.5 for his second. Still gave him a chance, you know. Normally, you wouldn't, after seeing his opener at 245 move like that, you wouldn't normally just jump a lot, but like, which I wasn't able to really. It was like just a 7.5 kilo jump, but he moved 252.5, much better. So then we get like a 10 kilo jump here, 262.5. It's really important to note that if we were able to hit 700, maybe 705, 710 for a Hail Mary deadlift, he would have been right in contention with Rainan, um, who is actually, again, like one of the coaches, one of the clubs that I mentioned last video, uh, coach for Ironclad Powerlifting. So he was one that's dropped down from 93 to 83, and Samesh is actually weighing in at 80 point something kilos, trying his best to eat up to the 83 kilo class. Still not quite there. Anyways, the way it panned out, we weren't able to really take 265 just because of how the opener moved. This is 262 and a half. In hindsight, 265 may have been there, but it's just, again, like Samesh is just now he knows that basically like in competition, I'm just gonna put on the bar what he earns, right? So with his opener moving like that, the cap was 262.5 for that day, and he was to his credit, he was able to lift that. Just meant that 265 was a bit too far out of the reach, and again, like having to overachieve for this competition. That wasn't really going to move the needle for us in terms of probabilities of winning the competition. That being said, 262.5 is a 20 kilo PB. Um, I know it sounds like we're not happy with that. It's just that like just progress isn't necessarily um, always small and um, pacing evenly. Like sometimes progress can be really good, and we just expected a lot bigger progress there. Same with the bench. So the bench there, he hit 135 for his opener and just missed his second and third attempt. Not a great outing so far out of the subtotal. Samesh's best bench in competition was 130, so that was still a 5 kilo PB, and we opened 5 kilo over his PB. It's just that he'd bench 140 in the gym before this for during the prep, and it was actually fine. Just wasn't able to make it there for attempt 2 and 3. So ended up having to go away with 135. Still a 5 kilo PB, but still not great. Deadlifts, we were like right now we were just looking at like maybe like first places out of reach. So we're looking at probably like 300 on the deadlift as a milestone, or looking at a 700 kilo total as a milestone. His opener was 275 there. This one's 290, so 290 will be a 4.5 kilo PB. Um, Again, like PBs across the board here, um, just from a competitive standpoint, just didn't have enough to really win the competition. In all honesty, Raynon did really well, making the cut from 93 and maintaining not all of his strength, but most of it. And yeah, we just went away with a second place, 29.5 kilo PB total for Samesh. I know it sounds like we're not too happy with this, just because we were expecting more, and that's simply just the truth. Next up, we got Rodney. It's a longtime member of ours. Um, and for the memes, he really wanted to buy and wear this white A7 suit. And yeah, that suit is crazy on him. Anyways, that was pretty much the most eventful thing for Rodney's competition, unfortunately. He did manage to have like a halfway decent squat session here for him. He was able to hit 200 kilo squat as a milestone PB. Never hit it in the gym. Never hit it in competition. The only thing is Rodney is actually transitioning from equipped into raw, so a lot of learning movement patterns and a lot of relearning pretty much how to lift without cheating with his equipment. So yeah, 200 kilo milestone PB for there for Rodney. The main reason why we transitioned from equipped to raw is because of his bench press. Now, his bench press, basically, he was a high arch bencher. He's got the angle sleeve super cat. He's benched like 227 on an angle sleeve super cat before. This is, what is this? 135? No, I got a video of this 132 and a half, I think. 142 and a half. So this is a video of him missing a 142 and a half. Yeah, just again, like with the angle sleeve, Super Cat just was never going to make bench depth with the new bench rules. So we transitioned into raw, and then again, like having to relearn and having to rebuild a lot of the different strengths, the different joint angles that's required with like a raw bench press there for him. So was able to walk away with 135, 5 kilos under his PB, made 212 and a half on his opener deadlift. That's 225. He actually missed that for his second attempt, but was able to finally wake up, make it on his third. So um, still was able to walk away with a 2.5 kilo PB on his total, by courtesy of just like literally just his squat carried his like total PB there. Next up, we got Gus. Gus is a PT out of Waiheke. So basically, Waiheke Island. So he's an online client. Doesn't have the best access to training equipment. He trains at a community gym that he PTs at Waiheke. So not a lot of access to spotters or anything like that. But he still gets the work done. He still gets the training done as best that he could. And shows up, ferries over for competition, and shows up, whenever we can to get competition experience for him. So Gus is in the 105 Opens. What have we got here for Gus? He went 187.5 on the squats, 200, and then missed 205 on his third. One thing that he is able to train well enough, and he is able to progress quite consistently, is the bench. We got here 157.5 for his second, and 162.5 for his third, for a 2.5 kilo PB. So again, like, bench is something that, regardless of like kind of your access to equipment, so long as you can kind of unrack the bench and you got a decent bench height, you should be able to develop a decent bench. And that's kind of like what's happened here with Gus. It's just getting hard for him in terms of access to equipment and like pretty much like commercial gym plates and such for the deadlifts and squats, to progress, especially for the deadlift, because basically like once you get to like the 200 220 range, the metal plates feel quite different to the commercial gym plates. The stiff bar feels quite different to the commercial gym bars. I know it sounds like I'm making a lot of excuses for Gus here. It's just like the situation that he has, and he does his best, and he tries his best to train as best as he could, and this is what we get. So basically, 200 on the squat, 162 on the bench, which is a 2.5 kilo PB. I think 200 was his old PB on the squat anyways, and 235 here on his deadlift. So he actually just missed one squat there. Was able to wake up and just kind of went 8 for 9 there. Still managed a 2.5 kilo PB on the total. All right, on to pretty much the bloodline. We got here Josiah. I mentioned him before at the beginning. First competition for Josiah. Started working with him. I think we were like maybe 2 6-week blocks in. Trains at a commercial gym, trains at 5 a.m. pretty much. And a lot of the numbers here will look severely undershot, at least up until the last deadlift. Just because like we're at strength discovery mode here. Like, it's an afternoon session. He actually gets to eat, instead of like, again, like the 5 a.m. session at a commercial gym. His best training block squat for this build up was 260. So what is this one? That's 260 right there. So you can see how that moved. And I was able to like load up 272.5 for his third attempt. Again, first competition, made his like a little bit of a cut down to 105. Actually went too deep into the cut. I think he weighed like 103. I just wanted to see how he competes, how he handles, like the environment of competition, the judging, the again, like the audience, and how he handles all of that. And obviously handled it well there on the squats. 272.5, an overachievement compared to our training block, and like the situation with his cut and whatnot, going a little bit too deep into the cut. And pretty much the way that moved, I as soon as he walked out of the platform, I'm like, I fucked up, because like I left must have been at least 7.5 kilos in there. And he was in a position where he actually, we originally thought that maybe Marius is just too far, which is again like coach for 09 Barbell. But But the way he moved that squats, I'm like, damn, like maybe we could have gotten more, gotten closer to Marius's subtotal. But either way, just silver lining, saved some juice for the deadlifts, and what you'll see later, we actually ended up needing. Here we are with the bench. Speaking of, bench press in commercial gyms, like obviously, Josiah again, like trains at a commercial gym, 5 a.m. It's got these super long arms, but he doesn't have like ultra wide grip or anything like that. Flat as a pancake with his arch. Um, so we try to make do with what we can and progress the bench however we can, and that is 6 for 6 pretty much heading out of the subtotal. Now once we get to here, we start playing, right? Like, so heading into this competition, we had 105s, 120s, and 120 plus. 120, 120 plus was pretty much locked in for us, but we kind of had no idea 105s was in the cards in terms of winning. So for this session, the final session of Auckland Champs, um, I was like, what the hell are we doing? You know what I mean? Like every attempt for Josiah is pretty much undershot. What are we doing? Let's compete, right? Let's go throw some numbers at this dude. So the attempt started with 285. 297 and a half was a pacing attempt, just in case Marius misses his last deadlift. Maybe a 302, 310 deadlift. Maybe for like a Hail Mary. Now, Josiah's best in training was 280. All right. This is 322 and a half. So we go 297 and a half, 322 and a half. I'm like, dude, like Josiah's undershot all day. Let's fucking send it for the last deadlift. Um, and see if we can take this 105, steal 105s for Auckland Champs, and pretty much lock in a sweep for the heavy boys session, the final session of Auckland Champs. As soon as he gets it past his knee, it's done, right? Again, complete overachievement, right? Like this dude, 280 at the gym was the most we done all block, 322 and a half on the platform. Just let pretty much emotions carry him through. And there you go, main event J of the bloodline, Auckland Powerlifting bloodline, gets the win for the 105s, and the sweep kind of started there for the heavy boys session of Auckland Champs. Next up, we got Ridma. Ridma is a new client of ours. Like, so he's been powerlifting for a little while. Known in the Auckland powerlifting community mainly because of his friendly nature. He's super friendly to everyone, and also volunteers a lot at comps, and obviously like good training environment kind of guy. He's been around GS, he's been around North Shore Barbell, so he knows everyone, has lots of support from the community. Ridma's moving up to the 120 class, so a little bit of a jump for him there. For Ridma, when he first came to me, he kind of squatted like a high bar, like this awkward, in my opinion, awkward kind of high bar position, kind of presented like a hard ceiling for him. So squat has been a big rework for us. Now, we haven't been kind of working together for very long. We haven't been trying to peak the squats, like just obviously, like whenever you're trying to rework technique, rework position, you don't necessarily want to expose the guy to heavy loads, just because a lot of the joint angles might not be fully developed yet. So that's kind of where we're at with the squats. So 275 was pretty much our first exposure for 275 ever since working together. And that's kind of what it looks like there. Still a work in progress in terms of position, but this is a new position to him. So being able to hit 275 after that being the first exposure of 275 for a little while, that's a positive for us. Again, still a lot of work to do in terms of position adjustment for us. Yeah, that's just Ridma knows. We've spoken about it. We've spoken about like a long-term plan for squats there. similar to squats, but not to the same extent. Ridma used to have this uh, close grip bench press that, again, like I feel like presented just like a hard ceiling for him in future, right? Like it'll feel really strong initially when your arms are super strong, shoulders are super strong in relation to the rest of the joints there, joint angles there. But figured we need to make an adjustment moving out. That's the bench. It was the only bench that he was able to make in this competition. Unfortunately, he's able to make 160, 167 for 2 attempts. After that was pretty much just no good. Again, still work in progress for Ridma there. Well, for us both. Deadlift. One of the big goals for Ridma for deadlifts is 300. He's really working hard to try to break that 300 milestone. We've already discussed kind of like our plan and kind of like what my read is on what's been um, what's been holding him back. Um, Basically, again, I sound like a broken record. Still a work in progress. Again, just because we haven't been working together that long, and whenever like so, basically, Ridma's like pretty much at that uh, that close to 300. 290, 295, 300. That kind of range. He's that close to it. With his old positions, old technique, it's really hard to rework it when you're really developed in those positions already. So this is 300 for his third attempt. So you can see there he runs into similar problems as the past, just like short lockout there, running out of pretty much room to lock out, pulling back a little bit too early. So again, a lot of work in progress there for Ridma, able to walk away with pretty much a pretty decent squat, 2 misses on the bench, and then another close call there on 300. Okay, so next up we got Khan. Khan is a super heavyweight, was a junior, but now transitioning into open. So that's a pretty hard transition to have to make. Junior to open is always hard, let alone junior to super heavyweight open, which is pretty much no limit for weight, no limit for age, and hard transition. But we'll make it through. Um, One of the things about Khan here is last comp we ran into trouble with depth, we ran into trouble with position on the squats, but we've been really working hard to literally just like sharpening up his movements, sharpening up his squats, not necessarily like getting it super duper strong, just keeping it sharp. A lot of sub maximal work in the gym, limiting his exposures to loads. I think 240, mid 240s was like our highest exposure heading into this comp, and that's 277 and a half, and that's kind of how it moved. um, and you can see like a lot of the technical work has paid off in the off season there for Khan. 277s in a position where we literally can use that as a sustainable position, sustainable technique for him to develop moving forward. All right, so bench press for Khan is one of those movements that has been going okay, but you can see there he gets a long start command. That's because his elbows, Teresa, shout out to Teresa who ref the session, um, his elbows just weren't locked out enough for her, and she gave me a heads up saying, hey, look, like it's just not great. All right, so we make the adjustment. I think the second attempt was, so his first attempt was 167 and a half. Second attempt 180 was not good. He got a re-rack command because even though we told him you need to straighten out the arms, still not quite there. So missed 180 on the second, made it on the third. You saw that on the third. Elbows were much better. So appreciate Teresa for making the heads up, but still giving him the start command. That's kind of how you want to do it anyways. Give him the benefit of the doubt. It's a local meet, you know what I mean? Like give the person benefit of the doubt, give the coach or the person the heads up, tidy it up for the next couple of attempts. Like I said, local meet, inconsequential for the most part. We're not able to break national records or anything like that. So yeah, Khan was able to make the adjustment, make 180 on his third attempt. And now we just deadlift for total PB, right? His deadlift PB was 300, so we're looking at probably like 305, modest PB there, just a 5 kilo PB. So the pace was 280, 292 and a half. So that's a 12 kilo jump. Probably still a little bit of a small jump. And then 305. So probably would have been better with bigger jumps, but at this stage, 305 was always going to go. Albeit it looks like it's like a pretty difficult lift there for him. But in truth, it was always going to go. Is a pretty high percentage lift. All right, next up we got James. James is back after 1 year hiatus. He hasn't not been training. He has been training. Just hasn't been the best of training. But now he's back to coming into the gym as well, getting important spotting for especially his squats. James has been working really hard. Again, like sharpening his squat, sharpening his depth. You can see there, 340 opener, moved well, sharp, and deep, right? So 340 opener, 355 for his second. Now this is starting to get into scary territory. James is one of these guys where he like the exposures for his heavy squats is always going to be sub-maximal. We're never really going to touch weight that we'll put on the bar until the competition, or top end weight until the competition. So 355, we had one exposure in the 350s heading into this comp. So walking out is a big problem for us. So that's 355. And next up, we got 365, which will be a 5 kilo PB. He literally hasn't touched this since 2022 Nationals. So this is the first time he's going to walk it out since then. And you'll see how scary this is. This is the world's heaviest cha-cha from Solo Sokoa. Here we go. Manages to lock out his knees, gets the start command, makes depth. Again, he was able to hit these like a year and a bit ago, but not as deep, not as sharp. Obviously, the walkout still has a lot of work to do. Just one of those things where, you know, when what's working is sub-maximal and you're never really going to be able to walk these weights out, it's going to be really hard to prepare yourself for these loads. Another thing that's been working really well over the last year, even though James hasn't been competing, is bench press as well. So bench is one of those things. Time under the bar, time under training, especially developing really, really mature muscle around the upper body. You're looking at like an inevitable improvement in bench press. You literally don't have to technique your way through this too much. You literally just need a good amount of time for a good amount of muscle maturity on the bench press, and that could carry you through. Obviously, still worked on technique, still worked on um, uh, like getting sharper on the bench. But here you see James hit 212 and a half, 222 and a half for a second, and 227 and a half for the 500-pound milestone on the bench press here. 17 and a half kilo bench press PB. So 5 kilo PB on the squats, 17 and a half kilo PB on the bench press. This one we could actually push. We were able to actually, I think we got like 220 in the gym, 225 maybe. No, 220 was the heaviest we had in the gym, and 227 is like moves like that. So a lot more room to move for James on the bench press. Super stoked for that one. You see him there, super happy. 6 for 6 after the subtotal. All right, so deadlift. One thing that you see here, James deadlifts with no belt. Not that his belt does anything. I don't know if you noticed when he was squatting, his belt is literally like one of those eco belt, like literally like a Hallenstein's belt might as well be when he squats. And you see him, no belt on the deadlifts, just struggles to find position with it on the deadlift. So we go big jumps for him here. Deadlifts training hasn't been great for James, but his squats kind of build his deadlift strength anyways. It's just about what he can sharply lock out. So 275, 300 on a second, 275 just secure the total, secure the win, 300 on a second, and then 325 on his third. Literally just like trying to like throw 25 kilo jumps there, just because from a strength standpoint, um, that's what I felt he was good for. You can see here, it literally is like, okay, like you see him like damn near stiff legged deadlift there. Just hard to find position again. Tough lockout, tough call to be honest on second look, two reds. But at first glance in real life, I understand why those reds were there. Yeah, it's just tough way to finish. But you know, we had a pretty good outing in all fairness. I think 270 was the biggest exposure we had for deadlifts. For James, you can see that there, like a lot of like much lower exposures for James until the competition. Uh, Stan, right? Stan makes his return to the 120 class about maybe 8 or 10 weeks out. Stan messages me, hey, saying I've been doing like a weight loss challenge thing with my family. I believe it was with his family. Weight loss challenge thing, and he's trying to make it down back to 120. So Stan actually was from 145 and then mid 140s, I think, and then now he's back in the 120s after a year of not even a year, maybe like a summer of weight loss challenge. So in the super heavyweights, he was kind of struggling with injuries, kind of struggling with making depth on the squats. You can see that they're much leaner Stan. Um, Obviously, took the squat weight took a big hit. Tried to kind of keep him healthy. Is the priority for his weight loss and just because he's been struggling with injuries the last season. So exposures weren't heavy again for Stan heading into this first competition of the season. He went 265, 280, 295. Believe that's 15 or maybe 16 kilos under, oh no, 18 kilos under his best 120 performance. So still a bit to move to regain that squat strength back once he kind of settles back into the 120s. We'll see what he wants to do, if he wants to stay here or not. But one thing that has improved since he's been in the 120s is his bench press. So he kept not all of his bench press strength, obviously, from being a super heavyweight. Like, you know, he lost pretty much 20 something kilos, right? 25 kilos almost. But you see here, he's at 182 and a half opener, 195 second attempt, and 202.5 third attempt for, I believe, a 17 and a half kilo PB or 12 and a half kilo PB. Can't read my handwriting on the bench press here. Both the third attempt bench and the third attempt squats pretty much just at the margin of what he could make. So he's able to kind of call the numbers pretty well, considering like just had no idea how strong Stan is at this weight just yet. And again, we could have tried to find out, but just tried to limit our exposures to heavies. Just again, like because we're just trying to stay healthy. It's too early in the season to try to push for big numbers just quite yet. One thing that I did want to push now is the deadlift. So we went 310, 330. Deadlifts was always going to be something that I don't think would take much of a hit. Obviously, still takes a hit, but much of a hit with the weight loss. Goes 310, 330, and then 343 and a half to close out the competition. Yeah, this is the last deadlift of the competition for Auckland champs. And the reason why that number was picked was to break Stan's own record at the 120s that no one has ever touched since he left the 120s in New Zealand. So I believe that was 2018 was his last 120s competition in New Zealand. And that's the first time someone in the 120s was able to break his total in New Zealand. 841 for a half a kilo PB. Again, first comp back from being 140 plus kilos back to 120s, trying to acclimate with the new body weight again, or his old body weight, and kind of strength discovery kind of mode for Stan there. So although the thirds looked a little bit, pretty much not a little bit, like thirds looked like they were at the limit. It was just literally just me picking numbers on the day that I think he was good for, that we weren't necessarily exposed to in training. just because just long competition, trying to keep Stan healthy. With the weight loss, a lot of bad things could happen. But in this situation, no bad things happen. A lot of good things happen, including James, aka Solo Sokoa. I know he hates that. He wants to be Tamatonga. Uh, Solo Sokoa over here, um, making taking out the 120 plus for us. Stan, um, uh, taking out the 120s open for us, and main event Josiah taking out the 105s as a surprise steal for us again. Probably didn't have to be so epic there towards the end if I just called his squat numbers a little bit better. And maybe even the bench, maybe another 2.5 on the bench, 7.5 or so in the squats, and I wouldn't have had to Hail Mary the 322 on the deadlifts. That being said, he made it anyways. First competition, goes 9 for 9, wins the 105 class. Can't say enough about the fact that that dude was able to like basically secure us the final day sweep there, which was a nice finish to Auckland champs for us that we didn't really expect. So yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate the competition again. Appreciate the competition from all the other clubs here in Auckland. Again, there's established clubs, there's established coaches that I didn't mention in the last video. What I really wanted to make a special mention to is all the up and coming clubs, all the up and coming coaches, really working hard, coaching a lot of the novice to intermediate lifters. Look, like the competition feels different. I've been around for a little while. It feels like a competition to a lot of people. I get it. There's always going to be outliers. There's going to be always going to be exceptional lifters that are world tier. They'll always be far and ahead. But for a lot of the people in between, a lot of the novice even, being able to experience true competition at your own level is super duper important to keeping a lot of people in the sport. Like I'm not necessarily just gonna go to the local Y and play against Steven Adams, play basketball, pick up basketball against Steven Adams all the time. I'm gonna play with people that's of similar level to me, and that's kind of what it feels like we're getting towards in Auckland Powerlifting Champs. At least we're get like our lifters, novice, intermediate, maybe even heading into advanced lifters. They're getting exposed to appropriate level of competition, and you hear me say that in the last video, maybe the video before, again, appropriate level of competition where you're exposed to people of similar level of lifting as you, as an athlete, and you can compete. You can experience having to make lifts that are meaningful instead of just trying to compete against yourself. I'm not saying that competing against yourself isn't meaningful. That's almost a given, anyways, in an individual sport like powerlifting. It's just one of those things where it's like an extra icing on top of the cake, and none so more so evident than in this last Auckland Powerlifting Champs. For a lot of the lifters. Again, been around for a while. It's heading towards the right directions here in Auckland. Um, and I can't say enough about the up and coming clubs and the up and coming coaches that are making it possible, not just for their own guys, but for everyone else across the board to be able to experience the competition that we historically have not had. Take it from me, I've been around for a little while. Um, trying to convince my guys to like, hey, just compete against yourself. Just focus on yourself, hit PBs. Again, like I make it sound like it's meaningless and corny, because it is corny. But really, really, really appreciate the competition because it makes it feel like an actual sport. So till next time, thanks for following our coverage of Auckland Powerlifting Champs, and see you next video.